Now, this is a short video part 3 of what support resistance trend lines are. And basically, I want to specifically mention the trend lines because I didn't really focus on that in the past 2 videos. I focused more on the support resistance and trend line, support and resistance, which is basically the S and R. And the third bit of it is T, which is the trend line. Okay, so if I'm to, so what I used here to draw this line here is actually a trend line too. So we know what an uptrend is and we know what a downtrend is. That's in video number 1. Now, if you want to basically draw the trend line, okay, this is the low. We pushed up, we bounced off, we pushed up, we pushed up, we pushed up, and so on and so forth. Now, what you will notice when you're drawing a trend line to the upside, this trend line to the upside also doubles up as a support. So yes, we have highs and lows, but also as we are pushing up, price will keep on bouncing or being attracted to this trend line, okay? And you know, like here it pushed up, and then it came back here, and every time it touched this trend line, it rejected off of the trend line. Okay, so it's important to know that, you know, sometimes that's how trend lines also work. So if you wanted to draw this trend line, you just simply mark it out based on your highs and lows on the way to the upside or on the way to the downside. Okay, so we are seeing the trend in this case, okay, is now pushing down. So the trend in this case where it's pushing up, we are forming a low. Remember the previous video, this is a low. And then we formed a higher low. And then we formed a higher low. Okay, yet another one here, right? So this is it. And then in this case, it's a reverse. Okay, we formed the high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. So we are just, sometimes the trend line just allows you to see better. You know, some people will be like, okay, when price comes to this trend line here, and please note, usually you want to plot it on maybe 1 or 2 highs on its way down, or on its way up, you want to plot it against 1 or 2 or more lows. The more times that price repeats or retests a specific trend line, usually the weaker that trend line becomes over time. So we can see price pushing up here, it retested here a couple of times, and then eventually price broke through. And the same thing here, price kept on retesting this level and eventually it broke through. Okay, so every time it retests here, you can anticipate that this trend down is getting, this trend line is getting weaker, and there's a potential that price could push through, you know, just to weaken it and, you know, do whatever it's doing. So I hope that is also clear. So this is an uptrend trend line. This is a downtrend trend line. And then we also have the sideways trend line here, okay, which can also, you know, you want to see it price rejecting off of that trend line a couple of times for it to be a real trend line. Like it came, pushed down, pushed up again, bounced off this first level, but this doesn't really form an initial support or resistance trend line until it bounces off of it again. So this was the second touch, and then it bounced off, and then it pushed down. Now, same thing when it was coming down, it came here, stopped, but before you start determining that price has actually stopped at this level, you want to see this trend line be rejected to actually tell you that this is actually a trend line, and it's actually happened. Price did try to break through, but then it rejected and then continued to consolidate. Now this is a sideways trend or a sideways trend line. And then this here is what? An uptrend, okay? An uptrend. Then we have a downtrend. So the trend lines can help you basically see the charts better, especially at the very beginning when you're beginning your journey as a trader. Like I said, eventually you'll be able to see this with your naked eye without necessarily drawing all these lines. But in the beginning, it's understandable that you may want to use the trend lines to give you a better idea of where price may stop pushing, whether it's to the upside or to the downside, and where it could possibly try to break through. Now, as we saw again, anytime there's a repetition of price on a specific level, then you know that in the future, price may or may not break through. Likely it will break through. So for example, even as we see this downtrend here, we were still seeing a sideways, trend here, right? There was a bit of a sideways trend happening over here. Okay, so yes, we pushed down, and then at some point we started to consolidate. And as we're trying to consolidate, we were still trying to break through. And then finally, what happened? We broke through to the downside. Then what happened? So this is a zone. Okay, I usually call it a zone. What do we see? Price came back to this zone again. So again, it's just, this is a zone, but yes, if you look at it on a bigger time frame, it can even look like a trend line. Let me go to the 4-hour, maybe I'll see it better. It can look like a sideways thing happening here, like, okay, maybe not that clear because you can see a gap here, but basically, if you stretch this sideways, what we see is that price, this is a key level. Something keeps happening here. Either it breaks out to the upside or it breaks out to the downside. So that's it for this video. I hope you've been able to see or how you've been able to learn how to draw your trend lines. Like now, this is a trend line. I am putting it on at least two minimum levels. The more it retests, the better. Okay. So I can draw my trend line from my low to my high, to my higher high, to my higher high, to my very, very higher high, if I want, as long as at least the trend line touches one or two or more highs on its way up, or this one touches multiple, let's say, lows on its way down, one or two or more lows on its way down. And you can see very clearly every time price came there, it bounced off, came there, bounced off, came there, bounced off. Okay, but obviously you're not going to just use this to trade alone. There's a lot of other things that you're going to be using to trade with, to just make sure that you're actually taking quality trades. So thank you again for tuning in. See you soon, guys.